We're going to dive into the show. We're going to get into some of the highlights of 2025. We'll talk about the whole year, talk about me, the generational run. We'll talk about the Trump administration. We'll actually get to a few news stories. There's a couple of things in particular that I want to cover just before we leave. And I guess I want to start by saying in our year in review show, 2025 probably is the best year that we've ever had at America First.
Welcome back to another reaction video. This time we're going to be going over Nick Fuentes, one of his later videos, I think his last video of 2025. And, you know, I'm going to actually agree with him on a couple of points in this video. And there's a specific angle that I don't believe that the conservative movement, specifically the MAGA base, is focused on. We're too busy going back and forth on who's America first, who's not America first, etc., etc. And we'll get into that in a minute. But let me go ahead and let the clip play, and I'll be back.
I think by far and away, easily, this has been the biggest year for the show. Most views, biggest viewership, most viral, biggest clips, biggest collaborations, debates, everything. It was monumental. And now it's coming to a close. Generational run coming to a close. I think we'll leave that behind in 2025. 2026 is a whole new game. But of course, what goes with that in 2025 is everybody is asking, why? How? People are saying, why now? Why was the show so successful? Why are the clips so viral? Why is everybody loving it? And this is something that I've talked about a lot in the past few months. I've been asked about it a lot. And there's been much debate about it in the mainstream media, in the conservative movement. Everybody wants to know, and everybody's wondering, why is the Groyper movement and America First so popular? Why is it so ascendant? Because for a lot of people, it feels like it came out of nowhere. It feels like all of this happened suddenly, overnight. Everybody was busy doing one thing, and then all of a sudden, the Groypers were banging on the door. And it seemed like this was this overnight success. And so people have speculated. They say, well, it has to do with the material conditions in the country. They say it's because the younger generation is frustrated and angry and anxious and depressed because of the economic conditions. They say it is because of politics, because the left wing has bullied young people, specifically the males and the white males. And so this is their frustrated reaction to being attacked for so long. They've become spiteful, resentful, angry, and this is an expression of, this is their reaction against those things. And I've tried to say it as plainly as possible throughout the year. You can point to a few very specific things. What created the phenomenon this year of this show, America First, the Groypers? You can actually pinpoint a few specific things. And it's not complicated. I don't even think it's contentious. I don't think it's debatable. I think it's very clear and very obvious what happened. And starting with number one, the number one thing which accounted for all this success this year. Why did the show blow up so much this year? The number one thing, which nobody will even mention, and nobody has mentioned, is that this is the first year that they simply stopped censoring me. That's it. It's that simple. Because for those that don't know me or don't know a lot about me, you might have heard, for many years, I was the most censored, canceled person in the country. And I don't say that to make myself a victim. I don't say that to be a martyr. It is just a fact that for years, I was completely censored, completely blacklisted, blackballed, and everything that entails. And that went into overdrive in 2021 after January 6th.
All right, so this is something that many people may have noticed, is that yes, Nick Fuentes has been able to grow, and he's been able to collaborate with a lot of other streamers, podcasters, from Steven Crowder to who's another one? Piers Morgan. He did an interview with Piers Morgan. Tucker Carlson was the biggest one. Candace Owens. And the reason why that's significant is because up under the Joe Biden administration, if you had a Nick Fuentes clip in your video on YouTube, YouTube would automatically take the video down. Instagram, same thing. Some people may have even had their channels taken down if you keep posting clips of Nick Fuentes. And the number one situation that I want people to take away from this is elections have consequences. Whether you like Nick Fuentes or not, if you've watched any of my Nick Fuentes reaction videos, you know I've been very hard on Nick Fuentes when it comes to certain things he said. When he right, he right. When he wrong. But in this particular case, he's right. He's always talking about how he's the most canceled person. He's been deplatformed, debanked. He's still not allowed to have a YouTube channel. But you can, do reaction videos to Nick Fuentes content and people like Nick Fuentes all day, and your channel will no longer get taken down. Your videos will no longer get taken down. And that's why I want us to look past all these, MAGA purity tests. We gotta go from being short-term thinkers to long-term thinkers. We gotta snap out of a micro mindset and go into a macro mindset, because the midterms is coming, 2027 to be here for you know it. And if we get a Democrat back in power, we're gonna go right back to the censorship, because the left is gonna want revenge. You got all this stuff going on with ICE. I'm telling y'all, they're gonna want revenge. They're going to want revenge. And, man, free speech is everything, man. Like, I know a lot of people that look like me. I know white people. I know all kind of people, young, old, male and female, who have had their channels taken down up under the previous administration based on what they was talking about. If you was talking, remember, look at all the nicknames. We use words like the jab instead of saying the vaccine. Instead of saying kill, we say unaliving, right? Instead of saying abortion, we say, baby deletion, crap like that. And you still got to talk like that on TikTok, and people have gotten so used to doing it. People talk like that on YouTube. So we have been socially engineered to accept censorship. And we've been socially engineered to, use a whole different type of lexicon. You got a whole different type of, social media friendly speech, if you will, just to get around the algorithm for censorship. And that's trash. That's not what this nation was built on. And of course, Trump is effing up in many ways. I'm more disappointed with him when it comes to his foreign policy versus focusing on domestic issues. So I don't want to get too far off track of what this video is about. So let me go back and let the clip play.
In 2021, I was banned on everything: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, DLive, Twitter, TikTok. I was banned on every major social platform, but I was doubly banned because I was also banned from appearing on anybody else's show. So if I went on Sneako's show, or if I went on Fresh and Fit, or if I went on any other show, YouTube would delete that show also. If I went on someone else's TikTok, or if I was on someone else's Instagram account, they were also banned. And it was like this for 4 years. So go figure. Why did I not gain a lot of traction in 21, 22, 23, 24? Because I literally didn't have a platform. I was banned from everything. The only platform that I could even live stream my show on was a platform that I made myself, because that was the only streaming platform I was allowed on. It was called Cozy TV. I had been banned from YouTube, DLive, Trovo, things you had never even heard of. And what happened this year is there were a few specific decisions that were made. Number one, I was unbanned on Twitter last May. So this is the first full year that I have been allowed on Twitter since 2021. That's one. Two, I was allowed on Rumble. And all of a sudden, I got a check mark on Rumble. I was allowed to stream on Rumble. I just in the past couple of months was allowed to get super chats on Rumble. I was allowed to stream on a major platform. Three, and this is maybe the biggest one, Instagram stopped deleting my clips. And this is something that we noticed This is like a switch was flipped, I think in like January. All of a sudden, you were able to post my clips on Instagram without being banned, and they were able to get millions of views, hundreds of thousands of views. That was never the case.
100%. You just heard Nick Fuentes say that he was allowed to go live on Rumble and get super chats. January of 2025, he was able to go. He was able to get his X account or Twitter, whatever. Elon Musk bought Twitter. That was huge. I had my Facebook account up under the Joe Biden, Kamala Harris administration deleted. I had my Facebook since 2005, 17 years. In 2022, they deleted my account because I made a post condemning the vaccine. I was saying something negative about the vaccine, and Facebook said that they're suspending my account because I was violating the community guidelines. I didn't curse nobody out. I didn't threaten nobody. It wasn't no medical misinformation. None of that garbage they try to, censor you about. But yeah, when Trump got in power, everything changed. And I'm basically a nobody on social media compared to a lot of the big streamers. You got guys like Steven Crowder, Anthony Brian Logan, Officer Tatum, Nick Fuentes. In the conservative spaces, Tucker Carlson. They got millions of followers, right? Either a million or more. Nick Fuentes, I think he's like 600,000 or something on Rumble. So you got a lot of big streamers who have had videos taken down and had accounts deleted, whatever. But as soon as Trump took power in 2025, everything changed. Mark Zuckerberg even came out and admitted that the government was pressuring him to take down certain information or certain posts on Facebook. And to this day, I will not post a whole lot on Facebook. I'll react, I'll post a little here, post a little there, but they deleted my account after 17 years, bro. 17 years they deleted my account. Crazy.
It used to be the case that if you posted any clip from my show, your whole channel would get deleted. All of a sudden, starting this year, you're able to post the clip without it getting taken down. And then the last thing that happened, kind of like the last shoe to drop, was around May of this year, I was able to start appearing as a guest on YouTube. This is something else where even in 2024, Candace Owens wouldn't bring me on her show because she was worried that if I was even a guest, that the whole YouTube channel would get deleted. And in May, for the first time, I think I did the Hodge twins, and then I did the Social Hour with Sean. All of a sudden, again, I was on a YouTube show, and the YouTube channel was not banned. The video was not taken down. I don't know if it was even demonetized. But I did those two shows. They weren't taken down. And that reflected a decision that was made at YouTube that they were no longer going to censor me from being on shows. And so I think that changes the perspective on where I came from this year and what all happened, because a lot of people said, oh, it's things that are happening this year. It's because everybody got really hateful. It's because of this, that, or the other. No, it is because for 10 years, we did not have a level playing field at all. And think about this. Think about it. For 10 years, it was a completely gate-kept, closed system. And by that, I mean the conservative politics, the conservative political media ecosystem. It was an oligopoly. It was a closed system. There were a handful of personalities and companies that were chosen, they were selected, and they were immune from censorship and shadow banning and all of it. And it was people like Charlie Kirk at Turning Point. It was Ben Shapiro at Daily Wire. It was Prager University. It's all these familiar people. Everybody else got banned, going back even further, going back to like 2016. People like Gavin McInnes, Alex Jones, they were unpersoned. They were banned from everything. They were gone. They never stood a chance. People like Sam Hyde lost his TV show, then got banned on everything. It was impossible to compete because we could not take, and I include myself in that also, we could not bring our product to the marketplace. If the product is the content or the show, we were not able even to play in the same ballpark. We weren't even able to play in the league. And so for the same amount of time that these other groups were the number 2 ad buyer on Facebook, they were number 1 podcast for conservatives on YouTube, they had a deal with TikTok in the 2024 election to get their content amplified and promoted. Whereas they were being promoted and steadily accumulating and growing and building, making a living, building a subscriber base, building an audience. All the rest of us were out there dying, losing momentum, losing subscribers, losing money because we were banned. And it's not a coincidence that this is the first year that everything opened up. And then all of a sudden, guess what becomes popular? Lo and behold, after 10 years of censorship, blacklisting, cancel culture, all of that, finally it starts to recede a little bit. Finally, they start to open it up, and all of a sudden, the number 1 shows, it's like Tucker, Candace, Nick Fuentes. Surprise, surprise. When you stop censoring the conversation, people have an appetite for white identity, criticism of Jews in Israel, criticism of feminism. Guys like Andrew Tate become the most famous people in the world. So that's number 1. Where did the generational come from? Well, they stopped suppressing me for a short amount of time. For roughly half of this year, I had no obstacles on that front, and I became massive. Number 2, and this is the other thing that nobody ever talks about. Where did the generational run come from? Number 2. Again, a lot of people say, well, he's expressing a popular discontent, but here's where he gets it wrong. Well, he's expressing this popular anger, this, that, or the other. The generational run really got off the ground roughly around May and June. And why is it around May or June that this show started to gain a lot of traction? It was because of a very specific news story. It wasn't a particular collaboration. It wasn't a particular interview. Up until the middle of this year, I didn't get a major interview. I had some good interviews. I'm not knocking them, but I didn't get really a massive mainstream interview until later into the summer. But I had my biggest show to date at that point in June, having not had any major mainstream collaborations. Nobody put me on. Nobody had me on a massive show. The biggest show that I had to date in the middle of the year was during the Israel-Iran war. My biggest show to date this year was when Israel bombed Iran and started the war. And then my biggest show to date after that, which was even bigger, was the night that the United States bombed Iran. Why do you think that is? It's because in 2024, I was well known as being one of the only people that didn't vote for Trump. And I didn't vote for Trump because I predicted he would bring us to war with Iran.
All right, so I'm going to shut the video down with this. It's already at almost 20 minutes, so I don't try to make these clips too long. Nick Fuentes, he's having a good run. Last year was the best year he's ever had, obviously. The collaborations, you know, the recognition, the notoriety, etc., etc. And Nick Fuentes, he knows that he's popular right now amongst, you know, a certain segment of the conservative right, especially amongst younger Gen Z males. You also have some millennials and Gen Xers. A couple of my reaction videos in the past, people would say, oh, I'm a millennial, I'm a Gen Xer. I've even had people say I'm a boomer in my comment section telling me they listen to Nick. But his core audience is Gen Z and younger millennial white males between the ages of maybe 18 to 30, right? Maybe even 35. But anyway, y'all enjoy it while it lasts, because he just alluded to the fact that he didn't vote for Donald Trump. He told people not to vote for Trump. And I talked about Trump very briefly earlier in this video if you're still here. Trump is effing up right now, right? His administration is so stuck on this hard power, military, you know, coups and the Maduro Venezuela situation. We finna attack Iran again. Being controlled by Israel. All the stuff that Trump spoke out against, he's still doing. He's not doing it to the degree that George W. Bush did with boots on the ground like Iraq in 2003. But the stuff that we're seeing when it comes to foreign policy versus diplomacy versus soft power like a China's doing. And I'm going to talk about that. This year I'm going to start doing a lot more geopolitical content because we're seeing a lot of political activities, heating up across the globe. And there's sort of a Cold War right now between the United States, Russia, and China. And who's going to be the big dog of this century? Because up until 5 years ago, it was America hands down, but China has really, really, really put America on notice that there's a new sheriff in town, and they've been able to do things completely differently than America has. And like I said, I'm going to talk about that in a later video. So y'all subscribe to my channel. I really, really want to start doing more international related content and how it relates to America. It's specifically what's going on with the two other global powers, China and Russia, and the petrodollar and these foreign wars and the national debt and how it's going to have an impact on the midterm elections. That's why I said y'all enjoy this while it lasts, because if the economy is not good or if it's not perceived it's gotten better, if Trump would have been more focused on domestic issues first, America first, I wouldn't be having this conversation, and the midterms would be sold up for the Republicans as of right now in January. But right now, the Democrats are favored to win the midterms because of the, I guess you could say, the neglect of America first from Donald Trump and his administration. So Nick Fuentes, he talks about this a lot. And I don't want to go back to censorship. I don't want to go back to the left and their authoritarian, governing style. I don't want to go back to that. But like I said, man, y'all make sure y'all subscribe. Make sure y'all like the video. All that good stuff. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. Nick Fuentes hit the nail on the head. And even though he can kind of come off as a little bit arrogant because he knows he's popular, he actually was kind of humble in this and told the truth. He just went straight into it and said, look, it ain't that serious. It's not that sophisticated. They stopped censoring me, even though he's still not 100% uncensored. This is the less censorship Nick Fuentes has seen in, like he said, over a decade. And without further ado, appreciate y'all watching. Peace.